You're listening to V&A Shipping, written and read by J.R. Murdoch. For more information, please visit ofgnomesandDwarves.com.
The vibration of the ship had softened. Of that June could be certain based on the speed of the light overhead pulsed and flickered. Twice she'd vomited, as the continual shaking had the effect of being on a merry-go-round too long. They had to be out of the gravitational field of the first black hole for the shaking to have slowed. Perhaps they were now escaping the pull of the second black hole and nearing the neutron star that would slingshot them to Planchar. She didn't know, and didn't want to think about it any more. Eep, eep, eep. No, Dexter, I'm not going to throw up again. I'm feeling better. It's just the shaking. I need it to stop. At least Joey and Vic are out of it. They'll be fine. June looked up and out the door of the weapons room. Mike's body had vibrated across the floor and was now in view. Tootsie, she said, and cursed herself. Tootsie's systems were all tied up, and she waited for the annoying buzz that she couldn't respond. Instead, a beep resounded. Yes, June, how can I help you? Tootsie, why aren't you navigating the ship? My processors are now freed up. We'll be clear of the neutron star shortly and should be on ground in Planchar in 15 minutes based on current speed calculations. The weight that held June's shoulders down for the past day lifted. Soon they'd be back. This would be over. They'd make this delivery and... Is the police cruiser still pursuing us? Yes. It is currently 5 minutes behind us. They took a slightly more aggressive route and gained on us over the past 2 hours. I lost their transponder for a short time and thought they had destructed, but they only lost focus on their 2 main antennas. That has been restored. How do you know that? I've been in continual contact with their ship. I didn't want anything to happen to the apprehension. Vic left me with instructions that I shouldn't do anything to upset him, and if that ship had followed us and been destroyed, that would have upset him. So I assisted their craft through the... You assisted? June asked incredulously. If the ship had been destroyed, it would have been due to our not stopping, and that would have garnered the attention of the Galactic Central Point Central Office. So I helped them through, knowing it would be better to have them catch us instead of them being destroyed and face the Galactic Central Point Central Office. That made a bizarre sort of sense. Thanks, Tootsie. Eep, eep, eep. It looks like we're going to make it, Dexter. Eep, eep, eep. I don't know what I'm going to do after this. I mean, if Vic gets that payoff for this load, that's going to be quite a lot of money. Eep, eep, eep. No, I don't think I'll go into the shipping business. I've had about as much of this as I can take. Still, I don't think I just want to up and leave Vic alone. Or Joey either. Eep, eep, eep. You may be right. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens after we land. Tootsie interrupted. Hold on. We're coming out of hyperspace hot. Sensors show a barricade around the planet. How are we going to go around that? June asked, mostly rhetorically, but Tootsie still responded. I've already contacted the lead ship, and we're clear to pass. The blockade isn't for us. Who's it for? I couldn't get that information. Regardless, we're coming in fast. I can slow us down, but we're not going to slow down all the way before we hit the... Tootsie faded into a static hiss. She'd never done that before. June wiped her sweaty hands on her pants as the vibration of the ship worsened. Vic and Joey had gotten the lucky end of this nightmare. At least they could sleep through the landing. A warning light flashed to life, and a warning siren sounded, the same as the fire warning. Nothing we can do about that one, June yelled to Dexter. Eep, eep, eep. We've entered the planet's atmosphere. Tootsie boomed over the noise. Why are we shaking so bad? June asked in a shout. I'm using the friction of the atmosphere to slow us down. I've lost my brakes, and several systems are down. We also don't have any landing gear. Tootsie, just get us on the ground as softly as you can. I don't want to hear any more about what's wrong. We're in gravity's hands now. I've done all I can. Argmon is steering us as close to the landing site as he can. I've already contacted those on the ground that we need a long slide area for a landing. The area is being cleared, and we'll be on the ground in 2 minutes. 2 minutes of pure hell. The ship was falling out of the sky at breakneck speed, and Tootsie, despite being loud, still sounded as calm as ever. Of course, she was a machine, but still, June had thought she'd sounded a little bit concerned. June gritted her teeth, closed her eyes, and held on. Coming in hot with no brakes. What a way to end this run. The vibration stopped for an instant, then started up again with a vengeance, rattling every part of the ship. June wanted to say a prayer, but honestly didn't see the need at this point. If they were going to die, she just wanted it to be over already. But if they were going to live, well, she just wanted to be on the ground and off this ship. The 2 minutes disappeared in a blur, and the vibration gave way to a thunderous slam that had to be the ship coming in contact with the ground. The ship lurched from side to side, accompanied by a deafening screech that could certainly wake the dead. June opened her eyes and wasn't surprised to see that both Joey and Vic were wide-eyed. Vic opened his mouth and must have said something, but June shook her head and pointed to her ears. Nothing would be heard over the screeching. The sound lowered to a dull roar and groaning as the ship slid to a stop. The sensation of rising in the air frightened her. The ship had stopped, hadn't it? As if in response to her question, the ship slammed back down, and all the lights on the ship went out. "Destination, Blanchard. Arrive," Tootsie said flatly. June rubbed her ears, but that didn't stop the ringing. She wondered if anything would at this point. Vic rubbed at his mustache. Joey gripped his head. Dexter unbuckled, seemingly unfazed by the events, and rammed from the room in a blur. They were back, but had they made it back on time? For Vic's sanity, she hoped so. Sheriff Justice rubbed the stubble on his chin. He'd need a good shave once he had the SS Acid Rat in custody. A shave, a massage, and a long nap. He'd have to look his best when they arrived back on Bomda. Parades were sure to ensue, as well as interviews, TV appearances. "Sir, we're getting a transmission from Blanchard."
"Put it through."
A tight smile crossed his lips. He'd called ahead so the local authorities on Blanchard could detain the SS Acid Rat. This must be their call to notify him that they'd succeeded. All he would need to do was collect the ship and return to Bomda. Of course, he'd owe a debt of gratitude to the local sheriff, but he'd make good on that debt. The vibration of the ship had settled to an annoying buzz that tickled his feet. They couldn't be more than 20 minutes from the planet, if that. The speed at which they traveled spurred his adventurous spirit. For a brief moment, he thought of himself traipsing across the stars and going from planet to planet. "Sheriff B.T. Justice, you are to maintain your present course en route to Blanchard. If you deviate from your course, your punishment will be even more severe. I am waiting for you." The image of Counselor Petrine caused the thin-lipped smile to curl into a snarl. He narrowed his eyes and glared at the officer that had put the communication through. The officer held up his hands with a look of complete surprise. He'd been duped. They must have been turned in by the Blanchard local authorities. Justice stood straight, adjusted his uniform, and turned to address the counselor.
"Counselor Petrine, what a pleasure."
"I'm warning you, Sheriff Justice. If you deviate from your course and force me to pursue you, you'll find yourself on Brecthenian for the rest of your life making big rocks into little rocks. Stay on course." He leaned conspiratorially down to the officer and whispered,
"Could we change course even if we wanted to?"
The officer typed onto controls. "Sir, I think our brakes are out."
"Well, can we reverse the engines?"
"Sir, the engines are not responding. They may have been damaged in the pursuit."
"Are you telling me that we have no engines and no brakes?"
Justice asked, louder than he needed to. "Sir, yes, sir."
"Counselor Petrine, I'm afraid you may want to clear a path for us. We're coming in fast, and we have no way to slow down. I shall have to use the atmosphere of Blanchard to slow us down."
He leaned back into the officer.
"Get those engines running."
"Sheriff Justice, I'll not take your comments lightly, but I must insist that you not approach the planet. You must slow your speed. You're coming in far faster than we anticipated."
"We just used 2 black holes to increase our speed, and the gravitational force has hindered the operation of our systems. I'm afraid we won't be able to slow down."
"Well, we shall clear a path for you, but you are not to land on the planet."
"I'm afraid we may not have much of a choice. If we don't have brakes or engines, we'll have to circumnavigate the planet in order to slow our speed and then land."
"Negative. We will track your ship's course, and once you've slowed enough, we shall use tractor beams to tow your ship. Once we have your ship under control, you'll be placed under arrest."
"Daddy, sir, I have an idea."
Junior's face beamed. There was no time for such foolishness, but the boy persisted.
"What? Cut audio transmission."
"If we slingshot around the planet, it'll slow us down, but then we can use the thrusters to break orbit and head here."
He paused to point to another planet in the Blanchard system.
"They'll take up pursuit, but due to our speed, they'll never catch up. We'll slingshot around that planet and back to Blanchard, now clear of the blockade, and head down to the planet's surface and pick up the acid rat and be on our way."
"You get your stupidity from your mother. Get out of my way."
He hit Junior with his hat.
"Counselor Petrine, we've nearly got what we came here for."
BT Justice hit an officer with his hat.
Turn the radio back on. Counselor Petrine, we nearly have what we came here for. Just let us pick up our target and be on our way.
I'm afraid I cannot do that. You've broken more laws in the past 2 days than the entire crew of the SS Acid Rat has broken over the past several years. I've deployed 20 drones to intersect with the apprehension. They will slow your ship as you traverse the planet. I'll see you in my office in 1 hour, Sheriff. Don't be late. The image of Petrine faded from view. That was it. It was over. Finally over. Not just the chase, but everything. And without anyone to blame. He'd spoken to Petrine several times. He thought about trying to talk his way out of it in order to catch the Acid Rat and get back home. But Justice was painfully certain that that would come to no avail. Not even a clever plan from Junior would save them out of this one.
Junior?
Yes, Daddy?
I need a hamburger.
Daddy, I need a hamburger.
Junior walked away.
Now the boy gets that from me.
Justice sat in his chair and planted his face in his hands. Vic's mind raced. What to do first? Check the ship? Check on Argmon? Get out and make sure the delivery is done? June, help me out. Vic struggled with his seatbelt. He had to get out. Panic overtook him, being strapped in with so many things to do. He'd never felt so helpless. Once June freed him from his seat, he sprang up, as much of a spring as he could manage, that is, and climbed the ladder and made his way to the cockpit. The canisters had toppled backwards and rested against the rear of the cargo hold. Tootsie! No response. Tootsie! Still no response. Vic passed the bunk room and lounge and started to climb the ladder to head to the cockpit, but stopped once he felt a breeze on his face and the stench of pollution assaulted his nose. He came to the realization of what that meant quickly. No! He climbed to the top of the ladder. Vic could see outside. The entire front end of the ship was missing. Only the ragged fragments of metal showed where it had been torn free. Tootsie? Argmon? Gone. They were both gone. His first friend he'd met in space, the one he'd traveled the stars with and shared many adventures with. Gone. Argmon, in order to save the lives of the rest of the crew, had remained in the pilot seat until the end. The ship could be repaired. They had money enough to repair the ship. But Argmon? Vic's lower lip trembled.
Vic, June called up. Vic, why can't I see daylight? What's happening?
Vic didn't answer. He couldn't answer. He climbed back down and looked at her, the look of confused shock on her face. Joey stood behind her and placed his hand on her shoulder.
No, it can't be. It just can't be.
She shook off Joey's hand and bolted for the ladder. Vic caught her and hugged her. She beat on him, fighting to be free, but stopped and sobbed into Vic's chest. Vic placed his head onto her shoulders and cried.
It's not fair, June wailed. It's just not fair. You and your stupid business.
She pushed him away violently.
The hell with all of you and everything you're about.
June turned and pushed Joey out of her way. Vic looked at Joey. Nothing remained to be said. Vic wanted to say something, but the lump in his throat prevented him from doing so. He patted Joey on the shoulder, and they slowly followed June. It's over. It's really over, Vic thought. He had June and Joey and Dexter, and if he really wanted to, they could certainly try again. But to what end? The Acid Rat, Argmon, Joopnop, Tootsie, Mike, even SPX-39, all gone, all based on a whim, a dare, a bet. Only 4 of them would walk off this ship. No amount of money was worth this. Vic wiped his face before he walked down the exit ramp, followed by Joey and Dexter. June had already left and ran into the city. She had a tracking device that he'd later be able to use to find her, if it came to that. For now, though, she needed time to be alone. A crowd gathered around the Acid Rat, and firecraft extinguished the flames on both the ship and the town. Argmon had brought the ship down on a long street, and they had nearly made it to the landing pad they had started at. It felt like 1,000,000 years ago. No cheers greeted them on this arrival, and no delegation came out to congratulate them. People just gawked and stared. What else could they do?
Make way! Make way!
Someone shouted. The person had to be Almo and his small companion. Vic didn't even know if they had made it back on time, and frankly didn't care. Almo's face spoke of anger. Vic put his thumbs in his pockets of his pants and waited.
It's not possible. It's not possible. No one could have made that run in less than 24 hours. I refuse to accept it. You cheated somehow.
Before Vic could respond, another man broke through the crowd. Chancellor Verbidi pushed his way next to Almo.
What is the meaning of this? There is a mile of destruction here. Who's responsible for this?
Almo pointed at Vic.
It's his fault.
Verbidi's shocked expression spoke volumes.
Is this true? Please tell me you didn't do this.
Vic shrugged. I'm afraid it is. My ship crashed. I went to Rado to pick up a shipment for Almo here, and he said he needed it within 24 hours. I did my best to comply.
24 hours to Rado? No one could make a trip there and back in such a short time.
Joey spoke up.
We used the gravity of a couple black holes to speed us up.
Almo and Verbidi exchanged gaping looks of disbelief. Almo stomped up the ramp and looked in the ship. After several seconds of staring into the ship, he spun around.
These containers are damaged. I'm not paying.
Verbidi shook his head.
Are you saying you did send them for this delivery?
I did.
So, based on your unrealistic expectations, they tried to deliver, and upon their return, they destroyed part of the city as well as their ship?
It would appear so, Almo said, cocking his head back and narrowing his eyes suspiciously at Chancellor Verbidi. The Chancellor rubbed his chin and looked from Vic to Joey to Dexter to the ship and finally at Almo.
Based on what I've been told, Almo Petrino, and I know your shady dealings despite your monetary contributions for the shipment of tenindrium, you are the one responsible for the damage suffered to the city. Therefore, not only are you going to pay for this shipment that Vic has delivered, you are also going to pay for the repairs of his ship. Furthermore, you will also be paying for the repairs of the city and a hefty fine. I don't know what you were thinking when you made this deal, but your irresponsibility has caused all this to happen, and you shall make proper restitution.
But Almo floundered to find words.
I suggest, Almo, that you leave my sight before I decide to include a lengthy jail sentence on top of what you'll be paying.
Almo tried to say something, but only squeaks and jabbering spewed from his mouth. Finally, the little one, Paul Petrino, started pushing Almo off the ramp.
Let's get out of here, let's get out of here,
the little one kept saying. Once they had left, Chancellor Verbidi turned to Vic.
Vic, I am sincerely sorry for what has happened to your ship. I hope that is the extent to your losses.
I'm afraid we lost more than that. Vic looked at the ground. I think V&A Shipping is going to close up shop. Even if Almo pays for the repairs, I don't think the SS Acidrab will be doing any more business.
I am truly saddened to hear that. You have done so much good. In fact, in the 24 hours you've been gone, the load of tenindrium you brought us has been clearing our air. With all the joy you have brought us, I would hope that you would reconsider. I am sure someone, somewhere in the galaxy could use your services.
Vic smiled. I'm sure you're right, Chancellor. But after a trip like the one we just did, the expense has gotten too high. Far too high.
I understand. I shall make sure that proper compensation is made by Almo. You are welcome to stay on Planchar for as long as you and your crew wish. Every convenience will be made available to you.
Thank you. Vic shook Verbidi's hand, and the Chancellor walked off into the crowd. So, kid, now what do we do? Joey stared wide-eyed out into the city.
I hadn't gotten a good look at it before. The city is huge.
Vic chuckled and slapped Joey on the back. Kid, you ain't seen the half of it. Screams and barking from the crowd caused Vic to look. People moved out of the way, and one head rose above all others. With long arms, 4 of them, covered in yellow fur, urging people to move faster. Argmon! Vic yelled and ran down the ramp to greet his friend. June pressed her face into her hands. She wanted to cry. She wanted to scream. She wanted to hit something or someone. The maelstrom of emotions inside her battled and raged and made her ache.
Why, Vic? Why did you have to be such an ass? Why did you have to take that stupid bet? Why did I have to push that stupid button that got me here? Why did Mike have to go and be a murderer? Why did Jupnop and Argmon have to die? Why?
She sat in an alley on a strange planet, in a strange polluted city, behind strange-smelling garbage, and felt her sanity slipping. This all had to be a strange dream, just a big dream. She would wake up any minute and be 15 once again, and lying in her bed back home. Any minute, any minute. All she had to do was escape this dream. The tears on her face told her that wouldn't happen. This wasn't a dream, and she would never go home again. She'd been there with Vic, and that was the reality she needed to face. Here people would die, stupid decisions could be made, and bad things were bound to happen. She just needed to distance herself from the stupid decision-makers. But that meant she would have to distance herself from Vic and Joey, the only other two surviving people from Earth. No matter how much she wanted to be free of them, she also needed them. Like a child with a security blanket, she needed them, a tie back to her home world, something she could touch and feel to let her know that even though the Earth, as she knew it, lay destroyed, a small part of it remained. June beat her fists on the side of her head. She wanted to hit something. She had to hit something. Nothing made sense, yet it all made perfect sense. If she returned to the ship, she had to make sure Vic knew exactly how she felt. He wouldn't be the one making choices for everyone and putting lives in danger because of stupid decisions. Everyone on the crew would have the same voice. Everyone. Taking a deep breath and closing her eyes, June steeled herself to go back and face the devastation of the acid rat. She stood and walked out of the alley. Sitting back in the alley, she had heard the noise, but hadn't identified it as being voices. People, thousands of them, had sprung up from out of nowhere and surrounded the ship. She'd just run into the first alley she'd seen, and the way had been clear. Now she needed to push and fight her way back to the ship. Their heads in her way made it difficult to see anything, but she guided herself by the ship and pushed her way toward its hulking wreckage. When finally, after being pushed, prodded, elbowed, stepped on more times than she can count, she emerged at the ramp of the SS Acid Rat. Vic instantly saw her and shouted something. Over the din of the crowd you couldn't make out anything but his smiling face and his arm around Argmon! She ran up the ramp and wrapped her arms around the big beast. He reciprocated by picking her up and hugging her with all four of his arms. He smelled of smoke and singed hair, but he lived. He had somehow lived. Argmon put her down where she could hear Vic talking 1,000 miles an hour. "And I never knew the ship had an ejection pod. Apparently once the ship suffers so much damage, the pod ejects automatically, keeping whoever is in the cockpit alive. Argmon is alive! Isn't that great?" June smiled, laughed, cried, and hugged Argmon again. He had survived the crash. All 5 of them had. All of them exchanged hugs. Joey hugged her the longest. Something about holding him made her feel warm inside. Something about his innocence that led her to believe that everything could still be all right. When she'd gotten her emotions back under control, she leaned in to talk to Vic. "We need to talk." He smiled and nodded. His smile shone differently, and not just because his mustache had been mostly burned off. She could sense a turmoil of emotion from Vic, emotions that mirrored her own confused jumble. She smiled back. They would talk. Later. Much later.
You've been listening to V&A Shipping, written and read by J.R. Murdoch. For more information about this podcast and its author, please visit ofgnomesandDwarves.com. V&A Shipping is released under a Creative Commons Attributions Only, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives Works 3.0. Feedback can be sent to jrmurdoch@ofgnomesandDwarves.com, or you can find me at Twitter or Facebook as J.R. Murdoch. There's a lot of podcast fiction out there. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this one.